Hello and welcome to the Porsche Sport Podcast. Joining me today on the programme is the leader of the 2022 Mobil 1 Porsche Supercup Championship, Dylan Pereira, fresh off a victory at Imola in the pouring rain. Dylan, first of all, welcome to the programme and congratulations on your victory at the weekend.
Hello, everyone, and thanks a lot for that. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Now, we'll go back to qualifying for the weekend, Dylan, because you qualified on pole by a quarter of a second, which in the context of the Super Cup, it's such fine margins. To qualify on pole by such a big number is quite rare. I mean, were you surprised to have such a strong margin?
Yeah, actually, yes. So I just did a really good lap. I think I was warming up the tires like it should be. Everything was really perfect. Setup was really good. And in Imola especially, it's not easy to hit all the curves like it should be. And on that lap, I really hit them perfectly. And that, I guess, make the difference at the end.
Yeah, it was quite incredible. I mean, on race day, you had quite an interesting race day because all the drivers went to the grid on slick tires because it was dry. And then all of a sudden it started raining. I mean, apart from changing to wet tires, was there anything that you could do on the grid to quickly prepare for this kind of surprise wet race?
There's not a lot you can do. Basically, you can adjust a little bit the path maybe, and that's it. So yeah, I don't know. Everyone was more or less on the dry setup, just managed somehow to put the rain tires on. And yeah, it was quite tricky conditions. I thought in the moment when I was on the grid, I thought, okay, it will be difficult because we never drove before on rain. So it's really, especially when you start from P1, you don't really want to lock up the turn one and then end up your race like this. So at the end, that was quite risky for me to try the braking zones because the other can just watch on my rear lights and adjust. So from that point of view, I was just really careful just to survive the first laps and then try to find my way through.
And what does the car feel like? I mean, obviously, if you know the race is going to be wet, you can set the car up for those conditions. But with that surprise and with as you mentioned, everybody having that dry setup on the car, but with wet tires, what does the car feel like with that kind of setup in the wet?
Yeah, it's for sure it's different than you're used to, but at the end, everyone is more or less the same. So. There's no difference again because everyone has the same more or less dry setup. At the end, there was always different also in this dry setup, and our setup was basically quite good for also the rain. So I was quite surprised that the car was driving quite nicely, good traction and everything. So at the end, I don't know, we were maybe lucky, and the car was driving quite nicely also in the rain.
From what I saw on TV, there didn't look like much luck involved, Dylan. It looked like you're doing the difference behind the wheel. You drove very well. I mean, do you? It's a little bit of a cliche to say that drivers from Belgium and Luxembourg and the Netherlands love driving in the wet because you all grew up in karts, usually racing in the wet. But do you enjoy racing in the wet, or would you prefer it be dry?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's always safer in the dry for sure. It's less risk. But since last year, I think somehow I improved really well my pace in the wet. So in that way, I find a really good confidence also in the wet. And since then, I'm also like to drive in the wet. But I definitely like more the sun especially when you're walking around the paddock.
Definitely. Now, the race started off on Sunday in quite strange conditions. Pulled off behind the safety car. There was a lot of standing water, and you had a few laps behind the safety car before the race went green. What do you need to do as a driver in a situation like that? Because I'm sure the car needs certain things to perform at its best. What do you need to do as a driver when you're faced with that situation to start under the safety car in the wet?
First of all, it was the first laps ever in the rain in Imola. So then you try to to find somehow your braking points, so somehow where to brake, on the line or off the line, and where is most grip in the corners. And you try to use a little bit of the curves and try to them how if they are slippery or not. Trying also to watch the safety car in front of you to see where he slips, whatever, because he was pushing hard too already on those laps. So on that way, you have to just be relaxed more or less in the car and analyze everything, and just to be prepared after 3 laps safety car, to be prepared to have your lines, to have your ideas, and to not risk too much at the end.
And in the early stages, right from the word go, you were on it, and you started pulling a really good gap early on from Laurin Voorde and Bastian Buus, who were having their own very big battle at that time. Were you aware of? I'm sure you were aware of your gap increasing, but were you aware that they were fighting each other? What was in your mind? What could you see at that time?
Yeah, for sure. I was focused, first of all, just to don't do a mistake on my point of view. Then my teammate, Sebastian Buus, did a really good job. He was fighting really hard, was really quick. So was a bit my chance to just concentrate on myself, to not risk too much at the beginning, and take my time more or less to learn the track, also in wet conditions. And then from that point of view, when I had all my braking points and all these things, I just focused to not do any mistakes, and that's where I then create the gap.
And of course, you've built your gap. It's looking good. You're in control, and then all of a sudden, safety car again, and the field bunches right back up again. You've now, that gap that you build up is gone. You've got Larry behind you. Harry King's come through as well from high in the top 10. What was going through your mind at that stage when the race kind of turned around with that second safety car?
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't really the best moment for me because I knew now everything gets tight again. Everyone knows better where to drive on the track, and so it will be tough to create a gap like this again. So I was a bit disappointed that the safety car came out and that my gap of I guess more or less 3 seconds was gone. But at the end, you just have to be calm and try to have a good restart, and then just don't do mistakes, because overtaking is still quite difficult.
Yeah, it seemed so, even with the wet conditions. I mean, you were able, after the second safety car, to build that gap up again very quickly. Was that a surprise to you, how quickly you were able to build that same advantage? You were just dominant. Did that surprise you at all?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't expect that much. I guess also after 2 or 3 laps after the safety car, I guess Larry find the speed somehow. He was pushing really hard, so I had to push also a bit more to keep the gap. So at the end, we were more or less the same speed. So I just were really, really good on restart. I think I already created a little bit of a gap of half a second or 1 second. And so then Harry King was also quick and was pushing a bit on Larry. Larry did some mistakes, so that was the main thing, which was able then to do a gap afterwards.
It's interesting you mentioned Harry King there, Dylan, a new teammate for you. I mean, you're one of the most experienced drivers in the field now in terms of Supercup experience, having been in the championship for another number of years. What are your initial thoughts from Harry joining the team? Have you had the chance to compare data, or is it all quite separate in the garage? How does it work at Lechner Racing?
Oh, for a moment, and I guess every year I was in National, we are quite open. We try to work as a team. We try to work on data and also on onboards, on testing, and try to improve the car as good as we can, so that we all as a team are strong. I think in Imola we could see that all the team was really strong. We were top 5 all the time, so that was really good. So that's also work what we were doing as all 3 drivers, and also the team preparing all the 3 cars really well. So for me, it's for sure at the end, if you're fighting for the championship in the team, it will be maybe different. But for the moment, we are trying to work together to beat the others.
And last year, Dylan, in 2021, you did a huge amount of racing and did so well in every car that you raced in the Supercup and Carrera Cup and in with the Aston Martin with TF Sport as well in the World Championship. And there was so many times where it was so close to getting that big result and to getting that championship. I mean, what has it been like for you mentally to over the winter from last season coming into 2022? Because you've started off 22 in the best way. What has it been like through the winter after 2021? Did you feel like you achieved everything you wanted to, or was there frustration? What do you tell us what you felt after last season?
Last year was quite difficult for me, to be honest. Mentally, it was really hard. Especially Super Cup, which didn't work out like I want. Main focus was on Super Cup last year. Unfortunately, I did a lot of mistakes from my side. Also, some bit of unluck at the end, but it's how it is. I think. But I had also good results. I think also Le Mans we were P2, so which is good race. I was the fastest driver in the field, average and on fastest lap. So I was really happy about that. It gave you also motivation a bit, but still at the end, always the negative things stay more in your head somehow. And then during the winter time, I just tried to actually do a lot of mental stuff to motivate myself again to push for these two cup seasons.
Well, whatever it is, Dylan, it's definitely worked. It's great to see you driving so well. What I'd like to talk about is Carrera Cup Deutschland, because this is something that many of your colleagues in the Porsche Supercup do a dual program with one of the national championships as well as the international Supercup. I mean, in your opinion, how important is it to have that secondary program to be able to succeed at the Super Cup level? Is that now an essential part of being a top Super Cup driver, having that extra mileage in the national championship?
I think so. It's really important, to drive quite a lot. This Cup car is quite special to drive. It's just... and when you are more in the car, what you learn more about it, and also just to find the last limit of the car. And like you mentioned already, it's always really tight in qualifying. So 1-2 tenths can be 4-5 positions, and that's only the difference. Being all the time in the car, trying things out, which others didn't thought about. And then you will find something on setup, find something on driving. And especially if you have also good teammates, you can learn from each other, and which you can then improve quite well.
And in your opinion, which is the most competitive national championship for Carrera Cup?
I guess German is quite the most competitive, because it's the front runners in Super Cup. They're also in Germany. Maybe 1-2 drivers less, but all the rest are still there. So on that point of view, it's more or less like Super Cup.
I like it. Now, of course, this year for Carrera Cup Deutschland, which starts in just under 2 weeks' time, you're going to be racing with Phoenix Racing. Now, they've got quite a background behind them, of course, that they're being based at the Nordschleife and what have you. How has it been settling in with Phoenix Racing for Carrera Cup Deutschland?
Yeah, we had already some contact last year. I think my teammate Arjen Guben, which is Porsche factory driver now, he was there all the time, so I had some contact with Phoenix all the time. Also, when I was doing GT Masters, I went there, I spoke to them a bit. So I got to know them already last year a bit. And then it's still a collaboration with Lechner Racing. So that's why everything came together at the end. And just coming... driving with them, it's always nice to have a big team behind them, which won already DTM and everything. So, which also are really strong on the Nordschleife. So, which can also help sometimes for the future to get some seats somehow. And but for sure, it's a big team. They also are really behind me and try to prepare the car as good as they can to also win the championship in Germany.
Well, fingers crossed. You're certainly with a great outfit to do that. Now, Dylan, one or two final questions. I mean, you've raced in the Super Cup since 2016, since you were as we say in the UK, since you were in short trousers, since you were a very young man, since you were a teenager. If you could win the championship this year, and of course you've started off in the best way, what could that do for your career? I mean, what do you want to do once you've got that Super Cup championship? If you get that Super Cup championship, what is the ultimate goal? What are you looking to achieve in the longer term?
For me, for sure, it's my big dream is to get the factory drive somewhere. The brand, I don't know, but for sure factory drive. And my biggest goals are to win the biggest races in the world. So for sure, Le Mans and Daytona, 24 Spa and 24 Nürburgring. So that's my biggest aims to do that. And one thing I also have to do is to win Monaco once. So hopefully this year we can go and push for that one. But that's my big aim. But it's hopefully if I would win the championship, it will help me on that direction.
And final question, are we going to hear the beautiful Luxembourg national anthem a bit more this year on the podium?
I hope so. That's my big aim. So trying to win as much race as I can and to represent my country also. And hopefully I can make everyone happy.
Well, we hope so too. Dylan, it's been great to have a quick catch up with you and hear about your perfect start to the Super Cup season. Good luck for the first round of Pereira Cup Deutschland and, of course, that big race coming up in Monaco in a few weeks as well. We wish you all the best here at Porsche Sport and thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. See you.